So, how do I get started with homesteading is the main question. And a lot of underneath that question are a few more I'm going to touch on for today. So, first off, how do I get started with homesteading? My first response to that is it's not really what you do as much as it is what you decide to do. So, it's not choosing any of these things. If I were to make it into the simplest form I can, I would say how you get started with homesteading is deciding to do and be a homesteader. It's really that simple. At least for a decision, that is the simplest you can do is you just have to make the decision. This is what you want to do. A lot of us, me included, went down the job and career and some sort of thinking I had to have everything in order to be something. And finally, sometimes things come to you and then sometimes you go to them. Sometimes you might have a gut feeling, intuition. Sometimes you have a dream. Other times you're just sick of it, you know. And I had probably all of those. um, with my story being 7 kids in 7 years, I wasn't exactly looking to do homesteading. I think underneath it all, I had the dream of it, and I suppressed that dream because it wasn't acceptable really anymore. It was, like, old, That wasn't what we do anymore, Dreaming of being the little house on the prairie home really wasn't what we do anymore. We, quote, unquote, "We're past that," right? And now, I mean, I laugh at myself thinking about that, but we're so beyond needing to go back. It's funny. It's actually pretty humorous. So, how do I get started with homesteading? Again, that would be decide. Decide you want to do and be a homesteader. It's easier said than done, but honestly, that's really the beginning. If I were to say, this is it, this is what I want to do, you just decide. And I'll go through some stories too of you can change your mind. This is not like you have to decide on something today and you can never change your mind on what you started. That's not even a thing, but for some reason, people like me think that I have to have everything all figured out first and then I'll do it and then I'll start it, or else it's like I need to prove that I know what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing in the first place. Um, it's really not about that at all. It's about growing into becoming a happy homestead maker. It's not about knowing how to do everything. It's not about doing everything. That's missing the point. The point is that you'll grow into the most well equipped, grounded, joyful human being you could be. And that was set out in the beginning of time. So, on to another question, which would be what are the first steps to take when starting a homestead in general? Besides making that decision that you want to do it, I would probably say, what is your dream? Like, what would your dream homesteading life look like? And maybe make a physical list of how that looks. Are you someone that wants to be in a garden all day because that is where you find joy and peace and excitement even? Do you love digging in the dirt? Um, planting seeds, growing plants, growing flowers, growing food. Do you see yourself getting up super early in the morning and milking cattle and then processing milk and having a dairy? for yourself or for others. I'll go into that over time. And doing it again. Usually they're milked twice a day, so cattle. Um, or on a homestead, you can go get around it and have a calf so that you don't have to milk twice a day. Maybe you do want to milk twice a day, and that's like your side hustle of homesteading is maybe making products out of the milk and, you know, whether it be from cattle or from goats or from sheep. So, what would be your dream homestead day and year? Like, if you could envision a day and a year, go through the seasons, what would each of those dreams look like? Maybe I'll dive into that a little bit more over time. But if you kind of think about what your dream would look like, you can kind of figure out what you want your reality to look like. Some folks don't want anything to do with animals at all, and they would rather be in the garden. Some folks are seed farmers. That's what they do. They grow plants in order to produce seed, in order to produce more plants. Some folks love to have fiber animals, and because that's like a hobby of theirs or a dream of theirs that they wanted to spin their own yarn, they want to learn how to knit and to use the fiber in fiber arts, whether it be, my favorite, rug punching, or um, crocheting or knitting or felting or using the rovings in any other kind of fiber art that you can think of. So I would say, how do you want your day to look? What do you want your dream day to look like? Do you see it with animals? Do you see it with gardening? Do you see it with children? Do you see homeschooling? Do you see cooking from scratch every day? Do you see flowers or do you see, food mostly in your garden if you have one? How does your home look like? Do you want it to be pristine? Do you want it to be lived in looking? I would say think about your day to day. How do you want your day routine to be? How do you want your season to be? How do you want your year to be? How do you want it to look? Maybe you have a dream. You don't have to do this at all. You're like, you know what? I want beef cattle. And that is my homestead dream. Like, I want beef cattle on the farm. I want to homestead for ourselves, of course. And then the beef are like the bigger idea. Great. Then let's go with that. And whatever it is your dream is for your homestead, start with that. Start with the dream, write it on paper what it looks like. What does it look like through the winter? What does it look like through the summer? What does it look like through the spring? Another question. Should I focus on growing food, raising animals, or both? So, my personal recommendation for me is I would want both. Not everyone uses animals for food, but they can use animals to be helpers on the homestead. So I would say both food, growing food as in plants, and then raising animals for food and helpers. I would do both because I like to have it all and do it all kind of thing. Do you have to start there? No. First off, I would say, what would you want to focus on first? And then I would go with that. Because whatever you want to do isn't going to end up being what you do. But if it were me and I were to say, okay, if I could do this again, what should I focus on? I would focus on where I am doing what I can. So if I'm in town and I can't have an acre garden, I would probably focus on doing as much of the homesteading as possible before branching out into a bigger idea of a homestead with land. Like, I did start that way in the cul-de-sac, right? So I started doing the canning and the bread making and the garden in the backyard of the cul-de-sac, and then we moved out into the woods and we had 25 acres. And I started too many things at one time. And that's where I ran into having, our first 100 chickens, 100 chicks in. It was in the middle of June. I was starting the garden, which is funny because it was June, and I was planting things at the wrong time, and I was raising things the wrong way. I mean, we were just all in. We were excited, and you know what? Who cares? We lived it, we learned from it, and we have memories, and they're actually good ones. So I would say both, but if I really had to focus on something and you wanted to do both, I would say focus on one plant and then one animal. So the awesomest combo, is tomatoes and chickens. If I were to focus on anything, tomatoes and chickens, unless you hate tomatoes, find something else. Unless you don't want to have chickens, find something else. Get a rabbit. So I would focus on one type of plant food and one type of animal, and for whichever reason, food or for homestead helper. Another question was, how do I prioritize what to start with? Chickens, garden, bees, etc. Kind of mentioned some of that. I guess the priority is, what do you want? Because again, whatever it is you are really wanting to do will end up being what you do. And if you don't, then you might end up resenting not. You might wish you had while you're doing the thing that you don't want to do. So, all of these things, any of the homestead stuff that you start, you have to start basic. You have to learn how to do them. And even folks that grew up around things, it's not the same. So, I run into some folks that, especially girls, like if you're raised on a farm and your brothers or your dad, they end up hunting and they're the ones that process the deer. Well, you might watch and know how to process that deer, but maybe it was their zone. You're like, no, back off. This is us. We're doing this. You might know how to do it, but you haven't done it. So even if we know how to do something in the intellectual side, we don't necessarily have the experience doing something. So you have to just kind of dive in on one of these homesteading things and go with it and learn. And you'll never stop learning. I will tell you that. You'll never stop learning. And the day you think you know it all is the day you'll get reminded you don't. A part of that question were bees. Bees are great. They are an animal that you don't necessarily have to, keep up with the same as you do chickens or rabbits and things like that. Some people use them for only pollination, and other folks use them for the honey and then, making more colonies. But I kind of steer clear of bees. I don't like flying, seeing things. I will totally girl out and start screaming and running. Um, I have great videos of our bees swarming and the kids just scooping them up. And I mean, it's astonishing. Like, wow, how does this even? I mean, nature is like the best thing to watch. Why do we even have TV? Let's see. Another question I've gotten is, what are the key skills I need to learn? Like, what do I need to learn first? And I would say learn to be a learner. Probably just said it again, is you'll never stop learning until you wanting to. I mean, no one wants to hear that. They want to hear, okay, tell me how. And how you do it is go. Just go. Just grab your chickens, grab your feed, grab your water, grab your grit, your coop, your nesting box. You know, everyone's situation, everyone's place is going to be different. Everyone's homestead's going to be different. No two homesteads are going to look alike, and no two homesteaders are going to be alike. They'll be very similar and they'll have a lot of common values, but they're not going to be the same, and they're not supposed to be. You weren't created to be like your neighbor. You were created to be a neighbor. So I would say my recommendation for the top skills I would need is first would be learn. Just read and learn as much as you can, maybe before you dive into something. But honestly, unless it's something that's going to hurt someone, just actually dive in it. Like, get the chickens and let's go. And maybe common sense will kind of take you a long way. The whole food, water, minerals, I mean, those are kind of the basics with animal care. I mean, there's way more into it, but that we can go in and down those rabbit holes, so to speak. Um, but you don't have to know everything first. I mean, if you wanted to know how to be a parent, perfect, and have the kids at the perfect time and know all of the ins and outs on what can happen and how to handle X, Y, and Z situation, and to be prepared in case ABC and happen, you're going to do, whatever the other letters are, MNO. Uh, you'll never have the kids. You'll never have the kids. We always say, okay, when I'm ready, you'll never do it because there is no ready. There's just go. There's just being and learning. And then, of course, doing. So the doing creates the being. And there is no have to know it all before you start at all. If anything, that will hold you back. It won't just hold you back on time, it will hold you back on second guessing everything that you want to do. Like you take the dream out of it. It's like romanticizing being a homesteader. You know what? What's wrong with that? Like nothing. Absolutely nothing is wrong with that. Why can't you dream of having your family on your own property, growing your own food, and that be your priority? What is wrong with that? I'm going to say it. Absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, that's what we're missing as a priority. So I want to go back to these questions that I've heard, which is how do I get started? I would say just decide and go. And first steps to take when you're starting a homestead, besides deciding, is what is your dream? I mean, I would love for you, because I'm a bit of a dreamer, write it out, record it. We talk way faster than we can write or type. So maybe take that dream and just like close your eyes and do your phone voice memo thing and just start recording. And I want you to go through the seasons, like go broad and then maybe go through the day and then go through not just the animals or the garden, but if you have a dream of a certain specific kind of animal or garden. I mean, I love peonies and dahlias for flowers, ranunculus. They're all gorgeous. They're all focal flowers too, which is, I want to grow all the focals. But maybe your dream is Scottish Highland. We've had Scottish Highland cattle before. Love them, would recommend them. We'll get them back, I'm sure. But not negating your dream as a waste of time. Because the only way you're going to get to it is if you actually acknowledge that it's what you want. And I'm here for you. If it's what you want, let's go. I mean, enough time has been spent thinking maybe we want something, bite to it and say, okay, let's go. How can we make this happen? Not if we're going to make it happen. How can we make this happen? What is your dream? Record it, maybe even transcribe it, and it becomes something. And then pick out all the highlighted parts. And then focusing on growing food, raising animals, or both. It depends on your dream. Again, maybe I'm circling on this again, but I want to recap it. I would do both. If I was brand new, I would start with one food and one animal. I would say tomato and I would say chicken, like a layer. And I would go from there. How do I prioritize what to start with? as far as prioritizing, that again is your dream. Like, what is it you want to do? And then what are the top skills that you need to learn first and learn to be a learner and learn that you don't have to know it all before you can start living it all. I mean, think about the parenting thing as an analogy and go with that because if we had to know it all and be perfect, this world would have stopped a long time ago because no one is. No one's perfect. And your kids come when they are supposed to come. And one of the things that we have done over time, and I'll probably go into this next time, is we figure it out. And guess what? You will figure it out too. If you want to figure it out, you will. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, looking at kids and if they want to do something, they're going to do it. And if they don't, they're not going to. And adults aren't any different, honestly. We've just kind of learned how to adapt a little bit to do things we don't want to do and kind of go above, that not wanting to do it. So, yeah, there we go. There's some questions that I've answered before, and I figured I'd record them here. And I'll probably do this again. And make sure you sign up on the website if you want in real time, keeping up with the Happy Homestead Maker. I have some things up my sleeve that I don't want to make any announcements or anything, but I actually get really excited. Of course, I'm a dreamer and I have really big plans. And you have to be on the email list in order to find out what these plans are because I don't want to give them all away. But I've come this far and I've dreamed pretty big and I have even bigger dreams. So follow me along with your dream on the website. Let me know what your choice is for homesteading. Are you going to make the decision? I want you to answer. Send me an email. Are you going to be a homestead maker? Have you decided? Give me your plant, give me your animal, give me your dream. Like if you can narrow it down, send me an email. I would love to hear it. It's so inspirational because I've been there and I just floundered and I was alone. And, I'm here. I'll email you back. So, anyway, that is it for now. Until next time, I'll see you later.